Welcome back to the channel. My name is Jesse Coomer, and today we're going to be talking about some surprising info about venting. You know that thing we all do whenever we get upset, go to our friend, we unload? Well, research shows that this may be causing you more harm than good, and we're going to get into why this is and how to approach these aspects of life in a more constructive way. Before we get into it though, I do want to thank our sponsor for the day, Magic Mind. Magic Mind is an all-natural blend that I use to help me to stay focused and calm whenever I'm trying to manage all the things I'm trying to manage. I've got clients, workshops, I'm writing books. I've got 2 books. Actually, I wrote most of this book while taking Magic Mind. The beauty is that Magic Mind helps you to stay calm and in a state of flow. Whereas a lot of people think that they have to be hyper caffeinated and just like really, and research continues to show if you really want to be able to focus, you got to be able to stay calm, and that's the beauty of Magic Mind. So thank you, Magic Mind, for sponsoring today's video. Let's get into venting, this thing that you do that's probably making things worse. So let's break this down. Venting is something that is very popular in the world today. There are places where you can literally pay someone to let you come into their clinic, and they'll have a baseball bat. You can break things, you can scream. I've seen workshops where people they say, okay, we're gonna go out and we're just gonna scream in the woods, and we're gonna just vent, and we're gonna talk about it, we're gonna get it out loud. People say, hey, let's get vulnerable. Let's talk about how all these things are wrong in our lives. Let's just say these things out loud. Now, the issue here is even though it feels good in the moment to do, when we are constantly rehashing these negative emotions and these negative feelings, the research is pretty clear. We are reinforcing these negative emotions. And when we reinforce them, we are just training ourselves to see things in a more negative light. There is a concept of conscious reappraisal, and this is the thing that we're really shooting for when we're trying to resolve issues that the venting crowd completely misses. And you gotta understand, if something feels good, hey, I feel like, well, if it feels good, let's just do it. But there's a lot of things that feel good in the moment that don't lead to better results. And sadly enough, venting is one of them. Venting is not only something that is causing you to reinforce negative emotions, therefore causing you to have more negative emotions in your life, you're also being kind of a burden as a friend. You're that friend that comes over and say, oh my God, so-and-so is gonna tell me how everything sucks. And so here you are, not only did you have a bad day, but you get to be the reason why everybody else had a bad day too. The research continues to show screaming into a pillow, punching a wall, breaking things that you might feel like, I just had to get it out, man. Now that it's outside of me, I had to, and there's all sorts of ways to justify it. Research shows you're just reinforcing that negative emotion. And I have never talked to a client or a friend who was like, well, once I broke something, once I, threw that thing and broke the thing, and once I screamed into a pillow, I wasn't mad anymore. It was just, everything was great. No, I mean, that's generally not the case, right? How do we go about working with these things that are very real? I'm not trying to say that you're not supposed to recognize things in your life that suck, because things will happen that suck. Where do we go? What do we do? Well, the first thing we do is we stop venting. We stop reinforcing these negative emotions. In fact, research shows that when we do this venting, when we keep on rehashing these things, we are strengthening the neural pathways, and we're basically making ourselves into a person who is more sensitive to negative things. We're actually creating a self as we go that is more negative. Cognitive reappraisal. So what is that? It's a fancy sounding word, but it really comes down to how am I framing this situation? Yes, whenever you have these situations happening, you're going to have a lot of unconscious processes that make it seem as though, oh my God, this thing is the end of the world and it's just, the whole world's collapsing, everyone hates me, or, and you can really lean into that, or you can start to reframe your situation. And so when we reframe our situations, we engage in what's called cognitive reappraisal, and that's ultimately trying to look at things in a better light, trying to look at things in a way that it's not diminishing our life, it's not causing us to suffer. And you can call it what you want to, but looking at the bright side, looking at how things will ultimately work out okay, things are going to be all right, that is a way that you're getting the benefits of, I guess, the opposite of venting. I'm just looking at things the way they are. That's how a lot of times we justify looking at the world in a negative way. But time and time again, research has shown that people who have a positive outlook in life tend to have better overall outcomes, tend to enjoy their lives better, have better relationships because they're not constantly venting and ruining everybody's day. And they have better overall health outcomes. You are simply rephrasing something in your mind. You're reframing it so that it's not going to be something you're going to suffer from. You're going to thrive. Number 2 is mindfulness and journaling. Now, some of you guys may be rolling your eyes and mindfulness and journaling, but mindfulness and journaling are two things that really it's sort of the same thing. This is a way for you to get your thoughts out and to structure your thinking. One of the mistakes that we make is thinking that just simply thinking about this issue is enough to resolve it. Oftentimes, we really do need to have some kind of a way to get our thoughts out, right? So, and this is where we fall into the trap of venting, but what we need is a structured way to get our thoughts out with a plan of not falling into these negative feedback loops. So if you get your journal out and you start writing your thoughts and you have a basic plan and saying, okay, I'm going to rephrase, I'm going to restructure my thinking, then you've got a plan. You're practicing mindfulness in a very practical way, and journaling has been shown over and over again to improve our overall outlook on life. Again, the problem we always fall into is we feel like, well, I deserve to feel this way. You probably do. You probably were, who knows, maybe somebody treated you the wrong way. Great, but guess what? As long as you hang on to those negative emotions, your fists are closed and you can't open up to any positive emotions. Do you really want that? Is that really what you're wanting to do? So getting your journal, yes, it might be a little extra work. It might be a little, some people might think it's a chore. I promise you it's worth your time, and just getting into a regular journaling process is going to give you so many benefits that you're not going to get by going to your friend and just complaining and venting or breaking something. So that is number 2, journaling and mindfulness. Number 3 is having a constructive conversation. Going over to a person and venting and just telling them all about how everything sucks is not constructive. Going over and saying, hey, friend, person who I trust, would you mind helping me work my way through this? I need to restructure my thinking. I need to reframe this so that I can move forward in a better way. Now, the thing is, you need a friend that is good at this, and we all know those friends that are just great at saying, man, things do suck, man. Yeah, a lot of friends out there will help us reinforce negative emotions. So you have to pick the right friend for this one. But if you have a friend who is a good friend that isn't an incredibly negative person, you can go find that person and say, hey, listen, I'm struggling here. I need someone to help me see the good things in life. I need someone to help me see the bright side and to call me out when I just am venting and going on in these loops of negativity. Help me out of this, friend. That's a good friend. That's someone you want in your life. If you don't have someone in your life like that, go back to journaling, go back to that mindfulness practice. But If you have a friend to do that, this is one of the best things you can do. That's why our social bonds are so important, because we need help sometimes. You have to understand that you're caught in this conscious, unconscious combination. So many negative things are coming up that you don't have conscious access to, but they're coming up anyway. You can't control those things. You can only control what you observe and how you move forward with your conscious thinking. Having another person there to call you out when you're getting stuck in those loops is infinitely helpful. So I highly recommend find that friend. Okay, we'll do a bonus. Number 4 is learning to get to know yourself better. Now, if you know anything about me, if you've read my last book, The Language of Breath, here I happen to have a copy. If you've read The Language of Breath, you understand that you are a relationship even within yourself, that you have conscious and unconscious processes that are working together. And a lot of those unconscious processes are there to try to protect you. And they're going to reinforce sometimes, and it's in the efforts of helping you survive and thrive, but it will reinforce these negative emotions. It is up to you to consciously get into that and take control. Now, sometimes that means we need to sit down and do some breath work. Breath work is so important, not because it's going to be magical, it's like pushing buttons in your like robot flesh machine or whatever. It's because what breathwork allows us to do is interrupt these feedback loops. So in my book, there's a session that's called the interruption exercise, specifically dedicated to these times when we just get into these ruminations, when we get into these feedback loops, when all we want to do is focus on the negative, and we know, oh, hey, I'm identifying, this is what I'm doing, right? So we identify, this is what I'm doing, and we can apply breath work to get out of those loops too. Even though venting feels good in the moment, we have to understand the way that we vent really matters. And so using these constructive ways of getting these things out and working with our feelings, working with our emotions, they are there to help us so that we're not going to suffer even more. Because, hey, if something happened that you feel like you need to vent about, isn't it awful that simply by venting the wrong way, you're causing yourself even more stress and anxiety? All we need to do is shift how we get it out, and we can benefit from that in our lives and in the years to come. I want to thank Magic Mind for sponsoring this video. I want to thank everyone in the Patreon Club. If you haven't joined the Patreon Club, it's the Breath Club. Every month we get together for a monthly breathwork session. There is a huge library of pre-recorded sessions that you can enjoy. Take a look at the links below. How do you feel about venting? Is this something that you struggle with? Is this something that you have struggled with in your life? Let me know in the comments below. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next week.